Wait for a week because I'm not going to start feeling another thing.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Kegiatannya Pak kira-kira apa gitu, plotnya kapan, jadi biar bisa saya juga urut cuma plan.
Pasti sebenarnya itu ada
yang nggak sama Kim ya, yang tulisan itu keseharian itu ya. Nah, kalau ada waktunya nanti rencananya tanggal kapan ini saya minta kalau ada di plot saya. Nah, pokoknya bulan nanti ini kita informasi biar saya pakai ya.
Kita tinggal di mana?
Apa?
Tinggal di mana?
Sekarang?
Ya.
Ya, saya tinggal di Inggris Selatan, dekat London.
Oh.
Saya
Anak.
saya kerja di Goldsmiths, University of London. Tapi saya tinggal dulu saya tinggal di kota London. Di sekarang saya sudah lama, saya tinggal dekat pantai.
Oh.
Ya, karena di sana iklim bagus dan
Ya.
tidak ada polusi dan bisa masuk London. Kalau dari tempat saya ke London kira program
Oh, anak saya sekarang itu tinggal di Leeds.
Leeds, oh ya,
Dia sudah lulus di Leeds Beckett University.
Leeds Beckett, yeah.
Program studinya Master Architecture Fusion.
Oh yeah. Oh, I know Leeds Beckett.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also it's a nice city. Does he like it?
Ya, saya belum pernah ke sana.
Yeah.
Saya mau.
But your does he like it?
I think.
It's not a city, actually. It's a university. It's like Jakarta. It's
Yeah. Yeah. Also, multicultural.
Yeah, multicultural and also lots of campuses.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's 3 universities.
Yeah.
No, and then
Leeds University, Leeds Beckett University, and
Leeds Trinity University.
yeah.
But also, it's necessary to have certificates.
Teman urut itu kemarin Pak, tahun kemarin. Oh, oke. Jadi saya sendiri tapi semangat teman-teman yang ngajar saya. Itu bercandanya Pak, pas setelah UAS itu KPA-nya itu diserahkan ini. Ini diserahkan enggak ini? Nilainya ini kalau enggak diserahkan, enggak baik enggak diserahkan ini. Yang
Di sini Pak Umar. Ya. Baik, Bapak Ibu, terima kasih sudah coffee break ya. Kemudian kita akan masuk pada presenter ketiga dan keempat kepada Ibu Diana dan Pak Gun. Nanti dipersilahkan.
Oh, kemarin kelihatannya ini ada cara mesti kontak cara lain gantian kalau masalah
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, Prof. Hitchcock. I would like to present my journal article titled "The Morphology of Urban Tourism Space" with the case Malioboro Main Street as Cosmological Axis of Yogyakarta. Background with the Yogyakarta position as a unique destination for urban tourism because of its cosmological axis, historical landmarks, and cultural heritage sites. Actually, UNESCO has just officially accredited this cosmological axis in Yogyakarta as a World Heritage in September 2023. The Malioboro Main Street is an essential part of Yogyakarta's cosmological axis and also a popular tourist destination for various tourist activities. Then its cosmological significance has led to the development of new urban tourism spaces. So this study aims to identify the morphology of the urban tourism space landscape in Malioboro Main Street and analyze the tourist movement patterns. The methodology of this study is a qualitative grounded theory with the typo morphological analysis and place-centered mapping techniques. From the introduction, I highlighted about the cosmological axis of Yogyakarta. And the cultural corridor that Yogyakarta possess between Mount Merapi in the north and the Indian Ocean in the south that has developed over time and form an imaginary cosmological axis that played a crucial role in shaping Yogyakarta's culture and city's growth. And also it accredited by UNESCO as a World Heritage site. These imaginary axis and cosmological axis further emphasize the belief that Yogyakarta's cityscape reflects the universe and holds profound philosophical meanings, connecting Mount Merapi and South Sea while intersecting the center of Yogyakarta city, representing the harmony and synergy of two sources of strength in life, all of the tangible and also intangible elements that forming the landscape along this axis and contribute to develop tourism spaces with different segmentation. Also, the historical landmarks along the axis, such as Tugu Palputih, Keraton Taman Sari, and also Panggung Krapyak, it has become Yogyakarta's leading attractions because of their strong and unique character and their close connection with history. Then, over time, the Malioboro Main Street become a vital part of the cosmological axis that connects the Tugu and Keraton and enhance its position as an urban tourism destination. Then the power of this axis create some tourism spaces along Malioboro Main Street with specific morphology, particularly in the areas of the city image within the region. Urban tourism in Malioboro Main Street has expanded beyond the main corridor, creating new spaces tailored to tourism components and specific activities. However, these spaces have also attracted informal economic activities, leading to persistent problems that require continuous research and regional planning. Unfortunately, the response to these issues has been reactive rather than anticipatory. That's why I think that this study is needed to address this issue. So a study must be conducted to determine the morphology of the urban tourism landscape, particularly in the city image area within Malioboro Main Street. Within the Malioboro Main Street. From the literature review, I divide into into the urban form and changes in urban space. In this part, I use the typomorphological theory and typomorphological approach. Yeah, from some theory that mentions the typomorphological approach examines that the development of architecture and urban designs to create types. And typomorphology is a way to analyze cities or urban areas and comprehend how the physical form, structure, and social aspect change over time. This analysis done by categorizing urban elements into types and examining their formation and transformation. Then the rapid development of urban tourism in Yogyakarta calls for typomorphological studies, especially in the Malioboro Main Street area, to identify the differences and characteristics of tourism spaces due to the constituent components of the city and tourism components that affect it. Adopting a typomorphological approach in the Malioboro Main Street area may aid in developing a more appropriate planning and design to concept to anticipate potential problems. And the next theory that I use in this study is the city image element theory from Kevin Lynch. Yeah, it is about the 5 key elements that identified by Lynch. There is landmarks, edge path, district, and nodes, which form the structure of the cities and can be represented on maps as symbols. These elements are essentials for human orientation in space and help us to create a mental image of the environment. That's why in this study, I use only the city image element that intersecting the cosmological axis that are the landmark, edge path, and nodes. In the Malioboro Main Street area, that four elements is represented by Tugu Palputih, Tetek Sepur, some office building, shops, and the ground zero. That are the examples of the urban elements that has been transformed due to the zoning and the revitalization programs shaping the area and activities. The next theory is about the tourism development and also tourism components. In the former study, I found that urban tourism activities have impacted the city shape, connecting the city center with tourism space with a contemporary urban structure and atmosphere. From that, we know that there is a relationship between the physical form of the urban environment and the activities of urban communities, especially in urban tourism. In the Malioboro area, tourism activities have influenced the creation of new spaces with activities that support it. It is known as tourism space. And according to Witkowski, this space refers to the entire geographic and socioeconomic area that experiences tourism in the city. About the method study, the study location itself is the Malioboro Main Street area. Like all we know that Malioboro Main Street is a very popular tourist destination in Yogyakarta, also in Indonesia itself. Malioboro Main Street always attracts large crowd of visitors and tourists with various activities, including shopping, culinary, history, cultural, and so on. The Malioboro Main Street area is the city's main public space with 2-kilometer long boulevard that also urban space and become tourism space with tourist activity in the area. These are the figure of the research focus and boundaries. So I divide 4 zone from the Malioboro area. Zone 1 is the area around the landmark, which is Tugu Palputih. It starts from the Tugu and along Jalan Margo Utama. And then zone 2 represented the edge components. It is the Tetek Sepur area. Tetek Sepur is a railway crossing of Stasiun Tugu that divided Jalan Margo Utama with Jalan Malioboro. And in zone 3, it represented by the path. It is the Malioboro itself. This is the main path of the Yogyakarta city and the main attraction of the Malioboro area. And zone 4 represented by the ground zero as the node of the area and also node of the city, because it is the main intersection zone and also the biggest intersection zone of the city of Yogyakarta. So the study focused on all tourism activities within the Malioboro, within this zone, starting from the north side of the Tugu Palputih and ending at the ground zero intersection. Then in the methodology, I use the typomorphological analysis with with a qualitative approach and grounded theory method. and also with the typomorphological approach used to modify the theory of tourism space morphology. And also the placenta mapping technique also conduct to analyze how is the human movement patterns that utilizing the urban tourism space in specific period and time. The study also analyzing the visual, spatial, and also social changes in the development of the urban tourism landscape throughout the Malioboro Main Street and the other zones in the area. This is the result of the study and also the discussion that describe how is the tourism condition and it's in its zone. The zone 1 is the historical landmark zone. It is the Tugu Palputi zone and its surrounding. Here I describe how is the mapping, the distribution of the tourism component in this zone. I only use the 3 elements of the tourism components. It is the accommodation, the amenity, and the attraction, and then the activity that occur in the zone. Here I divide activity in the morning and in the evening, and then in zone 2, zone 2 is a public zone area because of the presence of Tugu stations and also the presence of the Tetek Sepur as the edge of this zone. And then in the zone 3, it's the Malioboro Main Street area itself. The area is an important cultural heritage area. There is the important part of the cosmological axis. The Malioboro Main Street itself is a vibrant mixed use of residential, office, shops, hotels, and restaurant. It also the heart of the community activities of the city center and also the main part element of Malioboro area and also a vital of city corridor. The main street really plays a crucial role in shaping the image of Yogyakarta and creates a linear urban spaces along the main route, making the street is a significant urban tourism destination. The tourism space are arranged in a linear pattern along the Malioboro Main Street, and its pedestrian paths due to the dynamic activities happening in this zone. Besides, Malioboro Main Street has also transformed into a tourism hub featuring public spaces and pedestrian paths equipped with the street furniture, making it an ideal location for various urban activities. Due to the high intensity of the tourism activity, the city facilities that was the tourism amenities have turned into tourist attraction. So this zone is, in this zone, some tourism amenities transform into tourism attraction. Some well-known attraction include the Malioboro signage, Malioboro Mall, and also Teras Malioboro that was once an amenities that now experience as a attraction for the tourists. That was the component, and this is the activities that happens in Malioboro Main Street area. In the morning and the evening. Here we can say that some activities happens all day from morning to evening, and some activities only happens in morning like sports, but some activities like sitting and relax or walking in the pedestrian happens all day from morning to evening. Next, the zone 4 is the node zone from the of the ground zero intersection. Yeah, ground zero is known as intersection of the four major road of Yogyakarta city, and it is surrounded by some historical buildings. That is the cultural heritage of Yogyakarta city also, and it become the main tourist attraction of the Malioboro area. Yeah, and then from the four zone, from the activity component and the tourism type of that happen in the each zone, I try to figure out the morphology of the tourism space in the Malioboro Main Street area. I put it in a table in page 16. Yeah, so this is I try to define the pattern, the leading activity, the influencing component, and the tourism type from each zone. Yeah, from zone 1, the tourism space pattern is center linear and also a scattered linear pattern. Zone 2 is a linear pattern. Zone 3 is the linear and scattered linear pattern, and zone 4 is center and linear. This pattern affected by the city match elements and also some tourism component and activities and leading activities. That are some different leading activities from each zone, and also the influencing components. It is seem that the amenity is the most influencing components in its zone in Malioboro area. And the tourism type seems that shopping tourism is the dominant activity in zone 2 and zone 3 because of the existence of the shops that sell some Yogyakarta souvenirs. And in zone 1 and zone 3 is a historical tourism area because of the existence of some historical landmark and buildings. In zone 2, it represented by the Tugu, and in zone 4 by the some historical building around the intersections. And the strength of the tourism space, it looked by the leading activity that happens in the entire zone. Then for the conclusion of the study, we can say that in the Malioboro Main Street area, the strength of the tourism space is significantly influenced by the cosmological axis. It seems that some strong tourism space happens in the linear zone that was the main access to the area. Although the entire Malioboro area has become a tourism space, the zone with the main activities intersecting directly with the cosmological axis are the most robust. That was the zone 3, which is the Malioboro Street itself. And yeah, the tourism space on the Malioboro Street is the strongest, followed by the tourism space in the Tugu area and Ground Zero area. That's all my presentation of the paper. Thank you very much.
Thank you too. This is a field which unlike the previous presentation, it's a field which is a little bit far from me, but this particular subject is something that I do know quite a bit about. So I'll be quite able to talk about the approach and also the content as well. Just out of interest, are you still working on a dissertation as well? Yes.
Yes, but in the wider area. In this
Okay.
study, I just present 4 zones. In the dissertation, I present 8 zones in the area,
Okay.
and it just one topic in this paper.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
In that case, then I'll give you feedback on 2 things then. First of all, what could go into your dissertation and where else you could publish, okay? That's 2 areas. How you could develop your dissertation and what kind of outcomes. The reason I say that, just for the rest of you, this topic is very profoundly interdisciplinary, okay? I mean, most of your presentations have been pretty interdisciplinary. This one is very interdisciplinary, and it's something that the different disciplines, some of them I don't know about so much, but 2 central ones I do know. So my comments are more about boosting your dissertation to widen its scope theoretically and methodologically, to give you more options to publish in a wider range of journals. Okay, that's what I'm trying to do. And first of all, not only do I understand the idea of a cosmological landscape, which I do, because it's a concept that was probably first came up in my discipline, which is anthropology. I just happen to know Malioboro very well. Every day I've been in Yogyakarta, I have been to Jalan Malioboro. Now, I'm sure my hosts must think I'm crazy. What on earth can this guy find to go and see in Jalan Malioboro every single day of the week? And I go, well, they don't say that, but Jalan Malioboro is extremely interesting. And sometimes I pretend I'm shopping. I'm looking for batik shirts. And sometimes I make the mistake of actually not being quite open about the fact that I'm looking at much more than batik shirts. Okay. Incidentally, do you know the origin of the word Malioboro? What is it?
Yeah, there are some ada beberapa pendapat ya about the meaning of Jalan Malioboro. Some say that it was rangkaian bunga, and then some said
Shall I answer it myself? Okay. Yeah. There's two theories. One is that it is Sanskrit, and it means like a bunch of flowers. And the other is because the road was built during the period the British were in Java, and particularly here in Jogja. The story of the British in Jogja is something I think the whole of Indonesia should be even more aware of, and Britain should be more aware of, because it's a very critical period. Now, the person who was the most senior person was the Duke of Marlborough. Now, if you are an Indonesian or a Javanese and you're trying to say Marlborough, you're going to come up with Malioboro. It's one of those things. So yeah, it's worthwhile to in your dissertation to spend a little time talking about the possible origins of the word Marlborough. Okay. Incidentally, there's quite in the museum at the bottom, near the area you mentioned, that rather nice area where you, before you get to the alun-alun, you know, you've got that lovely museum now, which is the, I never remember its name.
Nono
Sunabudoyo?
Budoyo
Yeah,
Museum.
yeah, yeah. I went there the other day, and they've got a whole section on the cosmic landscape. And incidentally, for those of you who haven't been in there recently, it used to be a really, really dingy, boring museum, but now it's really nice. It's really interactive. And I went in there and saw lots of young people in there. It was very pleasant. Now, I'm going to make suggestions here. First of all, I think it would be really useful to go into even greater depth as what is meant by a cosmological cityscape or landscape. There is a literature. I just checked your list of references. A lot of things that I know are not there, which is a shame because, in fact, there's quite a strong piece of writing or pieces of writing coming from the Netherlands on, in fact, Indonesian cityscapes and Thai cityscapes. For those of you who have ever been to Bangkok, Bangkok is also laid out on cosmological principles. Most people don't realize this, including most people who live in Bangkok, but it is. So I think you should have an extended literature review, which would give you greater depth, because I think what you're saying is it is a cosmological landscape. I think that we can know more about that. I think we can go underneath that, because it's a very, my feeling is it's a very particular kind of cosmological landscape. And I think we would need more explanation in terms of Javanese belief, Hindu belief, Muslim belief, and all of these things. Jogja is a synthesis of very major cultural traditions. And so I think you need a bigger literature review covering the anthropology of cityscapes, particularly in Southeast Asia, which would give you, and I think you should actually explore with some experts on Javanese culture, the exact meaning of all of these points. Because at the moment, you're nothing wrong with it. You say it's there, but I think it'd be very interesting if you get underneath it, go into real big depth about what it is, you know, where is there cosmic energy flowing down these lines, and which I think would give us a very interesting view. Clifford Geertz famously wrote The Religion of Java, which when I was an undergraduate, it seemed like a wonderful book. But the more I got to know about Indonesia, I realized actually the book is very old fashioned. And so he's a lovely guy and he writes some very interesting things, but he didn't really understand Jogja. He really didn't, because we know much more. So his is a very interesting book, but I think you can actually do Jogja a big service by getting underneath exactly what this cosmological landscape represents. So I would say to you, put an anthropological hat on, okay? Secondly, I think you say you want to be involved in qualitative research, but I think there's room to find out what the tourists think about Jalan Malioboro and whether they understand it's a cosmological landscape. I think the key term here is the tourist gaze, which is written by John Urry. John Urry was a sociologist, and he said tourists look at things in a very cultured way. And I think it's very interesting if you could expand your research to find out what all these tourists, whether they're cycling, walking, running, shopping, if you could find out, you could maybe do it by survey, or you could do it by analysis of tourist blogs. You could do a content analysis of what tourists write about their visit. And it's very interesting because they may not understand that they are walking up and down Jalan Malioboro. Some of them may understand, we just don't know. So that would be very interesting too, to find out what the tourists think of this space. I certainly know what the academics think about this space, because I'm one of them. I think it's a very interesting space. But whether the tourists do is another matter. So I think I would expand your methodology a bit to the moment which we know what the tourists are doing. I think we need to know what the tourists are thinking. I think that would be very interesting, and that would get you published. There's there's quite a interest in journals in saying, what exactly do tourists make of what they see? Now, here they're faced with something very important. There's a kraton, there's a beach, there are mountains, there's various cultural landscapes. Do the tourists actually get it? We don't know. So if you could find that out, I think that would be very interesting. So I think then you would need also to expand your literature review on methodology, to talk about maybe something like a Likert scale, which gives you layers of understanding, maybe one way, or maybe netnography, which is basically going online and doing content analysis of the blogs written by tourists. I'm sure that both Indonesian and overseas tourists write all kinds of stuff online about their trip to Jalan Malioboro and Yogyakarta. You know, and understanding that would be very interesting indeed. So I think that's two areas to expand your literature review. I think your outputs fit into, I think what you're basically doing is, at the moment, I think you haven't clarified what your contribution is. I think your contribution could be precisely those points that I've made, which would be deepening the knowledge of the understanding of the cosmic landscape, deepening our knowledge of what the tourists understand about it. And the third contribution is to the dynamic use of urban space, which I think you've got in this paper. That I think you've already got. So if you've got that as your contribution, then I could see that leading on to publishing in international journals, you've got potential outputs. You've already got an output in a tourism journal. I think that with a very clever use of anthropology and tourism, you could go for a real big hitter journal, like the journal or the Annals of Tourism Research, because the Annals of Tourism Research was founded by an anthropologist. And they've always been sympathetic to the anthropology of tourism. But I think other journals also would be interested. Current issues in tourism, I would think. And probably even a geography journal as well. Secondly, I think you've got something completely different, which is to forget all the contemporary stuff and just publish a paper from your thesis on a real good analysis of this cosmic landscape. And that could go into a journal like History and Anthropology, or could be a regional studies journal. And then you could, so those journals often have quite a high impact factor, because if you take the Bijdragen tot Totaal Land en Volkenkunde, I'm not going to say that again because it's Dutch, and very few people in the world can pronounce it. But even a Dutch journal like that, which is very deeply interested in understanding cultural processes in Indonesia, big impact factor. So you could go History and Anthropology, that's a journal. They would certainly be interested in something on cosmic landscapes in a cityscape. And then, of course, you've got all your urban planning journals. You know, there's a sociological journal. Oh, the Journal of Urban Studies. It's a big impact journal. Is it Urban Studies? It's got a very boring title, but it's got a very high impact. I'll probably remember on my flight home exactly which journal I mean, but have a look around. It's something very boring. The Journal of Urban Studies, but big impact. So I think widening the scope of your thesis and thinking very clearly at this stage about the diversity of outputs that you can have, because I think it is a hugely understudied topic, and it's a very important one. And this is why I'm confident to respond to you. I'm not just talking about process here because I actually know this kind of stuff. I read this kind of stuff. I've written myself on Indonesian cosmic landscapes. So I know there's more to it than what you have in this paper here. So again, those are just suggestions. I just hope they're helpful. I was reading your paper while listening to you. It shows that boys can multitask sometimes. So thank you for that. Wish you all the best because I think I can see clear outputs and a clear development of your dissertation. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Very appreciate for all of your reviews and suggestion, Prof. Thank you very much.
Sama-sama. Okay, we have now the last presentation. Gun Faisal, yeah? Gun. Faisal, okay. We met earlier.
Yes.
Yeah. We've been having a good chat. We were having a chat earlier, just to give, we were chatting about Portuguese sailing ships, okay? We talk about anything, okay? Okay. Are you going to show up here as well, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, I'll just get myself organized.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for opportunity to me present my article about the ritual of upah-upah as determination of indoor spatial setting of a traditional Malay house in Rokan Hulu Riau, Indonesia. First of all, I want to tell Prof. Michael about I tried to submit this article twice and reject twice. So okay, I want to share to you this rejection is a soft language to reject all or just the editor what we call pure of the rejection or like yeah.
Okay, the question is, did you get feedback?
Yeah, no.
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 Okay, that's an outright rejection. If you get feedback, so the editor didn't give you referees reports or anything like that, no?
They
That-
say about the I saw you about this the first is they say about the experiencing is high volume of submission in the
Yeah,
field of
yeah.
Indonesian spatial studies and are unable accommodate any more. in
Oh,
this
okay,
moment.
that's okay. That's okay. Then in that case, no, actually they're being quite polite. They're basically saying there's no space.
Okay.
Yeah, no, in fact, what they're basically saying is we've obviously got a high volume of papers, we need to process them, so they've probably not really looked at yours.
Okay.
So I wouldn't worry too much about that because it's quite International Journal of Asia Pacific Studies. Okay. They've probably only just quickly looked at it and realized that they just got too many papers to publish. So I don't take this personally. We need now to look somewhere else.
Okay.
Okay.
The second one is I try to another journal and they say this not fit into the concept of our journal.
What is the journal?
Sorry, the journal is Asian Studies.
It's called Asian Studies.
Yes, Asian Studies, and they say not fit into the concept of our journal. Is the rejection is only the soft language to reject.
Oh, okay. That's not too bad either because that doesn't fit the scope of the journal.
This scope.
Remember what I was saying yesterday, you've got to read about what the journal, you've not read it closely enough. You must always just read and make sure that this is a case where the paper doesn't fit the scope. So they probably have looked at your abstract and not looked at anything else and say it doesn't fit our journal. Again, not a problem, because what I'm saying is your paper is not yet refereed. So we need to think, while you're doing a presentation, I will try and think of where you could put it, okay?
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Are you still writing a dissertation as well?
Yes.
Okay, okay.
But for the requirement to the my PhD is I almost submit and publish in one Scopus journal, and it is enough to the next step for the
Okay.
my PhD journey. So this one for the extra. Okay. Thank you. This about this paper. Okay.
Oh, it's from Rio, okay. Okay, that's fine. Yes, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
And about the abstract I'm highlight about the human migration, because this ritual is from the origin from the one district in the Sumatra in the Riau, and when the people migrate to the another city like urbanization to Pekanbaru, the bigger city or capital city, they also bring this ritual to their house. And this ritual called the upa-upa, they about the ritual of the life cycle ritual from the when people born, people get married, people die, and the unique of this ritual is about the when not only about the life cycle, it's like the spirit ritual. Like when I'm a drop to doing my PhD and I am get more spirit, the people give me this ritual in my house. So when they use the special indoor house, traditional house in from original destination, and when go to the new host, they use the some character of the space. And this my method is use the semiotic based method, because I'm doing this research when the COVID era, and we cannot go to the field directly, and we use the reference from the using the trichotomy Pierce analysis with sign, symbol, and index, and they see conclusion about this culture, this community always use the ritual process when he from and use in the new space in the new host. In introduction, I use the about the migration, and I use the about the ritual, many ritual in Indonesia, and ritual like in the Bali mentatah ceremonial tooth cutting, and after growing up, getting married, and ritual for the burn, die, and activity is use this highlight. And I try to explain about this ritual in the introduction, and use the how about the space in traditional house. This method, I use the semiotic method, simulation as approach. Use the Carles Sander Pierce trichotomy, and use like this sign and icon represented index all about this, and I use the interpretant, signified, and signifier to use how the compare when ritual and the new ritual. And in the result, these articles tell about this plan of the traditional house. They have a kitchen, family room, and the living room, and the foyer. And this of the facade of the traditional house, when this ritual come from, and they, maybe I want to see you about this. This is the layout of the ritual. When the people given the upah-upah and the people who doing the upah-upah, when I am sick, you give me the upah-upah, and you try to around me, bring the burn of the fire with the smoke to try. And I try when the process of the ritual, they bring fire from the kitchen, because the kitchen have the spirit and the fire from the kitchen. And after that, this one I tell about they bring what we call kemenyan, frankincense, kemenyan, and use the kemenyan to mengusir, what we call mengusir, get up the spirit, the bad spirit, yes, jiwa, yes, to pull back the spirit from the body. And when people have a new house and the new hometown and in the city, the capital city or another city from urbanization, they also use the upah-upah from this special setting too. They come when the people sit, when the like mother space, and also use for the many type of the new house. And they also use the typical of this ritual, and mother people who giving ritual, grandfather's space is always same. And I think the conclusion is about when the upah-upah doing anywhere, also we bring to the Yogyakarta or bring to the London, he always using this pattern to use ritual to when the indoor special setting. I think only this can I tell to you, and thank you.
Can you continue down to your literature review? Yeah. Can you go down to your your literature list,
Sorry.
your bibliography?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Slow. Plan.
Okay.
Just hang on. Okay, go down a bit more. Carry on. Yeah. Carry on. Okay. Thanks. There's a reason for that. Okay. Right. This is very interesting because this is a paper that hasn't actually been rejected as such. It's been found not no space in one case, and not fitting the brief of the journal. So it's not kind of like a rejection. So basically, it just underlines the point I made yesterday, that you've got to look in detail as to exactly what a journal is interested in. I've got some, quite a few points to make, because this again is a field which I understand pretty well. And I would say that, except that COVID meant that you couldn't do any field work. However, you could turn this, rather than just going on to a semiotic base method, why not just do a critical literature review in the context of desk research and really expand your list of references and really consider what the debates are, and then consider what is the contribution made by this paper. What is different about this upa? See, one of the problems is actually you said this rituals like rituals in many parts of Indonesia. So somebody reading it is going to say, "Oh, okay, no contribution," because it doesn't tell us anything. It's just another paper. But however, what you were saying suggests to me that if you look in very, very great detail in a sophisticated way at the literature on the use of interior houses, the cosmic layout of houses in Indonesia, in a really detailed way, using your own knowledge as well, because you're from Rio, yeah? Okay, I'll come back to that in a moment, because I think then you've got yourself very interesting dissertation and a very interesting paper, which is basically a critical review of what's understood about Malay houses in a cosmological way, and then what makes this a contribution to our understanding of how these houses work. Houses, as we know, in the Malay Indonesian world are very connected with notions of the life cycle, with the body. And I could ask hundreds of questions of you of exactly how these houses are put together, because even the way they're put together, for example, what kind of measurements do they use? Do they measure the house when they're building it? Is it measured in meters, or is it measured on traditional measurements based on the body? My guess is if you look at the original rumah tangga, they are based on traditional body measurements. You would need to answer that. This is where it gets interesting, because I do know of cases where the house owner, and this is going to you're going to find this really funny, being me, someone from Britain, telling you from Indonesia something about Indonesia, okay? So we'll just get used to that, okay? I've come across examples, of course, using the body as a measure is in many cultures. We have sometimes similar measures in Britain, they're quite natural. But the interesting thing is, in some parts of the Indonesian Malay world, it's not any old measure, it's the body of the person who the house belongs to becomes the measurement. It's personalized. It's not just any body measurement, it's that person's body measurement. Interesting, huh? Anybody heard that before? No. Oh, well, I have lived a bit longer than all of you, so. Okay, so things like that. So I think you really need to go into depth. And I think you could do with a trip back to Rio and go and talk to orang tua and find out about these things, because then I think you've got yourself a more in-depth look at the exact house. And if you give more details about its architectural design, this is a classic one. Why I'm interested in architecture, because I have published on traditional architecture. I'm not an architect, and I'll give you a clue. I failed to become an architect. which funny ways was probably a good thing, because I'm much better an anthropologist than an architect. But in fact, I did architecture at school, so I'm a very good draftsman. I can draw buildings. But so I would start drawing some of these buildings. Because I think if you can put the cultural knowledge with the drawings in a very deep way, you've got yourself something interesting. So I would go back to Rio and draw the houses. So use your architectural skills to do that, but with the cultural knowledge that goes with it, and somehow integrate the two so that we get a living house. And there is a book called The Living House in Southeast Asia, which isn't in your list of references. Go read, because that is a really good book. Because I think that that could be one area where you could make a contribution. What's all this literature? What's it saying? I'm going to now go into depth in this culture and say that we can say something different. Okay? Second point is, don't be obsessed with semiotic-based method. Just forget about it, if you don't mind. Think more about the fact of you as the author. If you are writing about your own culture, and many people in Britain write about their own culture. I mean, it just happened to me. I'm an oddball. I come to Indonesia. What about Indonesia? But if you're writing about, you need to be aware of the emic-etic debate, and you need to be aware of reflexivity. Because reflexivity is where you consider a culture that you know well, but actually you look at it critically. You are reflecting on it. So I think if you introduce the element of reflexivity into your writing, you will get something quite powerful out of it. So I think if you did that, you would find an outlet in somewhere like the Journal of Indonesia and the Malay World, because they would be very interested to find some new slant on understanding the Malay world. The journal comes from the School of Oriental and African Studies in London. And I think that if you did a really good analysis, and remember, this is a high impact journal. There are other journals around. So look at area studies journals. Perhaps stay clear of general anthropology. Go for area studies, go for journals with a focus on the Malay world, and then show that you can go deeper into it. The second area, which you didn't really go into, but I think has got great potential, is the idea of migration, merantau, because we have a very interesting discussion. Is the term tourism actually any good these days? Is the term migration any good these days? Well, we don't know, because sometimes we have to use words even though we know that they don't really tell us the full story. So we have to explain what they mean. What I mean is this: many people live in Bali, and the Balinese think they're tourists. They are by no definition tourists. They were originally tourists, but they now live there. It's not just Bali. If you go to Europe, many people in Spain came to Spain as tourists from Northern Europe, and to get away from Northern European winters, they went to live. They started off as tourists and became migrants. Okay, so the whole interest. So what I would suggest you do is look in the literature on migration, look on the literature of not all tourism literature, but perhaps look at the set. You know, I don't say there is tourism in Rio. I know that. So look at that, but also look at the concept of mobility, because there you can actually look at the literature on mobility and migration, and then integrate, look in more detail at the use of these rituals by people being mobile. And I think it's interesting because the most famous migrant people in Indonesia are the Minangkabau. They're everywhere in the world. Yeah. Yeah. You don't. If you go anywhere in the world, you'll always find someone who's merantau or rantau from Minangkabau. Doesn't matter where you go. I'm sure if I were to go through Congo tomorrow, I'd find Minangkabau doing something interesting down there. But so it's so I think you've got another strand. There are two separate projects. One, that could be integrated in the same thesis. What is the point and what is the meaning of these rituals used among migrants, and how do they compare with other migrants? Let me put it to you this way. The most famous festival every year in Chicago, in the USA, I would argue is not Christmas Day. It's St. Patrick's Day. St. Patrick's Day. St. Patrick's Day is the day of the patron saint of Ireland. There are so many people of Irish descent in Chicago that, and also in New York, that St. Patrick's Day is a huge celebration in America. Wherever the Irish are great migrants, they're the Minangkabau of Europe. Okay, the Irish go everywhere, and what they do is they use their ritual, which is a St. Patrick's Day parade. Now, it isn't. It's to show everybody else that the Irish are here. It's what we call a pride parade, a bit like a gay pride parade. It says, we are here. We are part of your landscape, and we are Irish. You should respect us, but you should also have some fun as well. So St. Patrick's Day is always a fun. Now, we have in London and Sydney, we have Chinese New Year. Okay, same thing. Chinese come out on Chinese New Year. In London, it's become a really big festival, Chinese New Year. Everybody likes it because it's fun, especially this year, Year of the Dragon. Lots of nice dragons everywhere, lots of nice food, lots of music, loud noises. So, but the interesting thing is that a Malay migration ritual is in the home. Okay. The other case, Irish and Chinese, it's in the street. Same thing, but represented in different ways. Yeah, it's not just a Chinatown, it's the fact that they actually hold the celebration so openly. So everywhere around the world there are, and also another example is Carnival, West Indian Carnival. In London, we have Notting Hill Carnival, which is the biggest festival in Europe, Notting Hill Carnival, founded by people from Trinidad. And what they were saying was, we are here. Because they were experiencing, when they moved to London, they were experiencing rejection and racism. So rather than protest, they said, we're going to dance. We're going to have music. We're going to have color. And you know what? Everybody loves them for it. So suddenly you become a downtrodden migrant community into something everybody wants to be. And it was very clever of the Trinidadians, because everybody now wants to be a Trinidadian. Everybody wants to be in. So now in Notting Hill Carnival, you have it's a multicultural festival. You see even people playing Caribbean instruments. There's one little group comes in every year to London playing Caribbean instruments. They come from Switzerland. So I think this whole business of migration and rituals is something that could, again, you could then aim for a migration studies journal. Yeah. And so I would say, do some field work. Go and interview some people, because I think it will strengthen your dissertation, especially if you're using older informants who can remember or may have written records. I've been in parts of Indonesia where elderly people have seen their culture change so much that hidden away in a little box is all their notes about what we used to do. And it's very interesting, and I encourage them. And sometimes they say to me, you take the notes. And I say, no, I'm a foreigner. I don't want to. But they say, yeah, but if you don't do it, nobody else will. And I say, well, that's not quite true. I'll find you an Indonesian student who'll do it. I'm too busy, by the way. I'd love to do it. So you might find not only oral accounts, but you might find also written accounts. And so that's my response to you. Refocus your work into these main areas. And in both those areas, I can think of a clear direction of travel to international journals. So that's area studies, Indonesia and the Malay world, or any of the other area studies journals working on Indonesia and Southeast Asia, and also the migration journals as well. And there are a lot of them, because migration is a big issue. Wherever we are in the world, migration, there's people migrating everywhere. So there we are. Thank you very much. Just in time for lunch. Oh,
Thank you, Professor.
hey, look at that. Not bad. 12 o'clock it says lunch. 12 o'clock we're ready. Okay, let's go and have lunch.
Yeah, thank you for Prof. Michael. Terima kasih kepada keempat presenter. Dan sekarang kita akan lunch and prayer. Dan kita akan kembali lagi ke ruangan ini tepat pukul 13. Setelah itu kita akan closing bersama Prof. Wiendu. Dan juga Prof. Wiendu akan memberikan sertifikat kepada seluruh peserta. Jadi Bapak Ibu dimohon setelah selesai makan siang dan prayer bisa kembali lagi ke ruangan ini. Terima kasih.
Ya, boleh. Ya, boleh.
It's a very, very Yeah, David, yeah. I enjoy it because essentially that's just a very good second-hand book. And it's some of these books that are critical scientists who are up. And this one is a good one. Yeah. I can leave my copies here. Yeah.
Yeah. Ya. Ini lah malah. Oh iya, siap Pak. Oh. 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 Katanya kan orang biasa. Oh. Anu, Pak Menteri. Inisiatif sendiri. Itu ya. Sore kan selalu sore, selalu sore. Pasti Pak Kendali kan juga dapat karena sudah tahun juga. Dia diseleksi untuk ditanya seleksi. Terus kontraknya itu terus tadi harus jadi yang lainnya jurnal yang paling penting itu harus kalau itu nggak tahu ini kan enggak yang enggak jadi kalau person itu kan kayak gini ngomong kayak gini ada tempat motor gitu sehingga banyak produksi jurnalnya hapus itu hanya salah satunya karena saya itu mana gitu berapa orang perempuan satu dan tolong
pilih bergiliran gitu satu orang megang berapa persen
ya satu orang jadi satu mahasiswa tapi dua profesor
dan per 30 gantian
dua gantian kan 4 lawan 30 share lagi kan gitu kan jadi semua orang satu mahasiswa pasti itu satu dosen pasti itu pembimbing project sudah ini kalimatnya udah bagus ini jadi produktif itu yang kita hasil itu dengan waktu 3 minggu dan 4 bulan dapat review jadi akhirnya ya menurutku lumayan sampai mesti dikirim ke orang nanti itu langsung dicek mereka kita dapat dari masyarakat saya respon terus komunikasi mereka bukan proses bahwa poin-poin review itu apa ini jawab report apa itu jawab ngomong nanti tadinya program sustainability energi dan petani. Betul. Sekarang posisinya pun begitu. Yang cover, belum.
karena saya tahu ada beberapa jelasan tentang itu tahu tapi juga ada itu apa ya ya
batasi saya juga tambah juga itu kembali. Nah, tapi kalau seperti yang tadi dilakukan kan ngedorong banget ya kan?
tapi pun di luar
Ya. Jadi mereka dari paling oke, paling ini
Jadi kayak
itu yang ditulis dari berita.
jadi itu apa namanya?
Pelajis.
Jurnal yang sukses pendidikan.
Mereka sangat menghargai itu.
Juga mama aku sama.
Nah, cuman gini, yang tampak kebijakan terakhir negara Indonesia, pemerintah, itu kan itu kebijakan tentang PLTS itu apa itu ditolak antara Kementerian BUMN sama PT PLN suatu BUMN orang kebijakan dari kebijakan PLN ini merasa iya tuh mau aku pengen keluar itu ya riset lagi itu jadinya
Itu area mahasiswa eksperimental.
seperti aku dulu ya.
Banyak kan kalau kita itu Pak.
Itu si Ben itu ya Ben ketua alumni mereka itu itu kan harus mengalami semua program studi
Ada arsitektur.
iya kan ketua alumni itu loh yang kemarin
Kalau yang fakultas.
oh yang fakultas
Masih belum masih perjalanan panjang. Tapi lebih kita
terus kalau nggak wah hidrokapasitas itu jelas saya dulu
bahasanya sama
iya
mental yang gitu kaget.
saya dulu waktu jadi pembantu DTAP itu saya melakukan apa audit energi sama kalau Mas Inggil Profesor Almarhum menjalani Solo dari besar kan teman audit sampai itu jadi audit ya turunkan di audit hasilnya tak bawa ke ini loh hasilnya kayak gini ada aku semua jadi
karena apa ya harus sampai tapi jadi terlalu sama yang everything yang
iya kayak gitu dan strateginya kalau kontrak regulasi itu tahu nggak supaya power
kalau dipakai di Indonesia segala macam kalau tidak kreativitasnya beda. Mereka kayak
Itu birokrat ya.
oh ya apa
Jadi
ya
ada terobosan gitu.
kita kayak bisa melepas ini sebenarnya ada apa ini ada bisa sendiri
Ya, ya, ya.
jalan.
Enggak. Wah, itu terjebak itu. Aku di pengabdian dulu itu itu selalu posisi mengalami.
Belum ada soalnya. Kayak itu tuh hal akhirnya gimana kalau ada ucapan Pak apa ya jauh apa membuang sama Pak itu langsung gimana Pak?
Wah, ya itulah.
Pertebaran ide.
Besok pagi itu ya itu. Ya,
Apa life experience?
iya. Ini ada tempat mau ngobrol-ngobrol aku mau ya.
Tempat ngobrol. Iya, buat dipanggil di sana juga. Jadi mau bawa itu kalau guru bilang teman-teman angkatan di awal-awal. Oh, pasti bilang. Pedagogi doktoral
Karena tetap ada dua program. Yang satu punya proyek. Itu asistennya kan sekolah proyek dari ngambil dari ya, itu yang kami ditawarin itu ya kayak gitu. Karena dia hasilnya nah, terus si dosennya dia itu senang. Ayo. Aku takut
jadi kalau banyak Tapi kita kalau punya basic yang bisa mendiskusi yang bisa banyak juga.
Yang kemarin hanya
Aja isinya itu kan atau ini ada enggak?
Di sini nggak ada masalah di sini. Di ruangan itu, di ruangan apa? Nanti saya tunjukkan ini setelah ada.
Ya. Oh, nah, kalau kami ya bisa ceplak lah ya. Enggak, Bu, aku kayak anu ya, kursi ya.
Oh, saya itu kan biasanya tuh ada saya beli presiden karena ini baru mau dibuatkan nanti.
Yang di antara masih banyak momen itu aku sering jadi narasumber banyak sama dia dari juri banyak dia terus begini Mbak itu ya apa betul ya.
Kapan bisa tuh langsung aja. Kalau saya kan kota di Ketua. Ya, jadi kebetulan
Mungkinkah saya someday berkirim email ke mungkin ya. Terima kasih.
Ya, saya kasih yang dari universitas juga.
Ya.
Ya, ini dari universitas.
Oke. Ini membacanya Pak Hitchcock. Hitchcock.
Yes, yes, yeah. Sorry? Oh, yeah, just like, oh, okay. Just tell me when you want, to start.
Okay,
Yeah. Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Selamat siang teman-teman. Sambil kita menunggu sesi terakhir, di mana nanti ada review terakhir dari Prof. Michael Hitchcock, kita di sini sebenarnya kedatangan new member gitu ya dari mahasiswa doktor arsitektur. Beberapa memang kita sudah kenal, juga ada yang belum kenal. Mungkin yang teman-teman baru juga belum tahu apa ya kakaknya atau apa gitu. Dan gimana kita mungkin sementara ini di sini, terus nanti event berikutnya kita bisa saling lebih mesra gitu mungkin ya, di luar acara yang formal ini gitu ya. Ada ide gimana perkenalannya dari yang paling sepuh atau yang dari muda? Oke, mungkin dari sebelah kanan saya ya, yang teman-teman angkatan baru boleh menyebutkan lengkap ya, semua ding sama nama dan latar belakang apa aja boleh disebutkan. Kita sebentar saja ya, mungkin cepat aja. Saya Grady, teman-teman baru mungkin ada yang belum kenal saya. Saya Grady, saya dari Jogja saja gitu. Terima kasih.
Ya, saya Hapsari, angkatan bawahnya Mas Grady dari Jogja. Terima kasih.
Perkenalkan saya Rian, angkatan genap 2023, 2223 dari Lampung asalnya. Terima kasih.
Selamat siang, perkenalkan nama saya Yunita Kesuma, asal saya dari Lampung, saya juga angkatan genap 2022-2023. Terima kasih.
Ya, perkenalan nama saya Dita dan saya dari Jogja. Saya seangkatan sama mereka semua.
Perkenalkan nama saya Firda, saya asal dari Surabaya, saya juga sama dari semester genap 2022. Terima kasih.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Perkenalkan nama saya Fitri Prawitasari. Saya dari Program Doktoral di Universitas Atmajaya Yogyakarta. Angkatan pertama. Terima kasih.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Nama saya Fadila Firdausa dari Doktor Teknik Sipil Universitas Gadjah Mada.
Selamat siang, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Nama saya Kade Indira. Saya angkatannya genap 2022-2023, asal Jogja.
Assalamualaikum, selamat siang rekan-rekan semua. Saya Husna Izati dari angkatan 2021 ganjil. Saya dari Bandung, terima kasih.
Selamat siang, nama saya Ana. Saya angkatan 2002 ganjil, asal saya dari Semarang. Terima kasih.
Saya Rosalia Rahma, asal dari Semarang, angkatan 2021 genap.
Selamat siang, perkenalkan saya Andrin dari angkatan 2022 ganjil dari Jogja juga. Terima kasih.
Baik, terima kasih. Perkenalkan Bapak Ibu sekalian, nama saya Nino Ardiansyah, biasa dipanggil Nino. Saya dari angkatan baru, genap 2023. Salam hormat untuk semuanya. Terima kasih.
Selamat siang, saya Dito dari Jogja, angkatan 2022 ganjil.
Selamat siang, saya Mewan, saya angkatan 2022 ganjil dari Jakarta. Terima kasih.
Selamat siang semuanya, saya Cynthia dari Jogja, saya angkatan 2022 ganjil. Terima kasih.
Bismillah. Selamat siang, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Perkenalkan Bapak Ibu, saya Lapandi Jurumai dari Kendari, Sulawesi Tenggara. Terima kasih. Angkatan 23 genap. Terima kasih.
Selamat siang. Perkenalkan nama saya Zulius Santos dari Universitas 11 Maret angkatan 2023, asal dari Timor Leste.
Assalamualaikum, selamat siang. Saya Murwantoro Pangarga, angkatan 2022 genap. Asal dari Jogja.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Perkenalkan nama saya Wiwi Dwi Susanti, saya angkatan 2023 genap, asal saya dari Malang.
Izin kenalan juga teman-teman semua. Saya Hetty dari UNY, kampus sebelah ya, tetangga. Asal dari Lampung. Oke, terima kasih.
Baik, perkenalkan Bapak Ibu, nama saya Inayatul Ilah, saya asli Jogja tapi dinasnya di Jayapura, angkatan 2023 genap. Terima kasih.
Ya, makasih Ibu Ina. Selamat siang Bapak Ibu semua, saya Elvi Salo, angkatan 2021 ganjil dengan Pak Gun, Bu Husna, Bu Emma, dan satu lagi Pak Asrul. Saya aslinya dari Maluku, Indonesia.
Assalamualaikum, maaf. Ini saya rodok malu memperkenalkan ya, karena angkatan yang paling, nggak usah disebut ya. Nama saya Sri Sunarti. Dari Jogja juga, angkatannya sudah ya ganjil lah gitu. Pokoknya terima kasih.
Terima kasih, selamat siang. Nama saya Tutun Seliari, saya dari Jogja. Kebetulan sama dengan Bu Sri, kami kalau menyebut angkatan rada gimana gitu ya Mbak ya. Jadi kami, ya, kami berlima satu angkatan di sini. Terima kasih.
Selamat siang, saya Tina. Saya masih satu angkatan dengan Bu Sri, Mbak Tutun. Nggak berani nyebutin angkatan. Terima kasih.
Selamat siang, saya Mutia dari Semarang. Kita angkatan 2020 ganjil.
Iya, selamat siang teman-teman. Saya Diana dari Jakarta. Ini kami berlima di sini kebetulan satu angkatan semua. Terima kasih.
Perkenalkan, nama saya Andre, asal Solo, dari Universitas 11 Maret. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Perkenalkan, nama saya Gun Faisal. Saya angkatan 2021 ganjil, adik tingkatnya mbak-mbak yang ini. Ya.
Ya, selamat siang. Perkenalkan, nama saya Mirza Ramadika. Biasa dipanggil Mirza. Saya dari Semarang, angkatan 2022 ganjil. Ganjil.
Selamat siang Bapak Ibu semua. Perkenalkan nama saya Suzy Maria Praina Limgudinyo, berasal dari Timor Leste. Saya dari Magister Arsitektur UNS, angkatan 2023.
Perkenalkan, nama saya Yunanto Nugroho dari UNS, tinggalnya di Solo.
Perkenalkan nama saya Nia, saya dari Jogja, angkatan genap nggak pakai tahun ya.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Saya Ahmad Saifuddin Mutaki. Saya bekerja di Universitas Islam Indonesia. Dan saya sekarang mahasiswa doktoral di Universitas Katolik Sugia Pranata, semester 4. Nah, di sana ada semester 6, mudah-mudahan 5-6-nya cepat gitu ya. Mohon doa saja. Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum.
Nama saya Michael Hitchcock. Saya asal dari pulau kecil, namanya Inggris. Barangkali dekat Indonesia, tapi saya tidak tahu. Okay, I'm going to give a summary. We heard 6 presentations, all on very different topics. All of them very worthwhile, very interesting. So it's a little bit difficult because I actually gave very different kinds of feedback. But there are some common things which I did notice, and I'll just stick to those, okay, rather than detail. First of all, this is not just typical of UGM. This is typical of pretty well everywhere. I've been involved in supervising PhD students from many different countries, but also in many different universities. And I think the thing is that there's a really something these days that you really need to do very carefully. You need to position your chapters in an order. Not every thesis can be written like this, but position your chapters with essentially 3 chapters to start with. 1 is the introduction, 2 is a literature review, and the 3rd one is the methodology. Now, if you're doing a desk research project, it's a little different, but you can also do it that way as well. So those are your 3 components. Now, the interesting thing is that almost every one of these 6 presentations, there's a gap between those 1, 2, and 3. What you need to do is to make absolutely sure that they flow into each other. And the real critical point is, first of all, your literature reviews need to be wider and laid out more clearly. And you need to decide how your research questions fit with your methodology. None of you justified your methodology. Absolutely none of you. Now, we're asking at my university, we're asking students constantly, don't just pick a methodology because you like it or because you think it's good or it's fun. Because actually when you eventually submit it to be examined, or when you try and make papers out of your dissertation, this will be picked up. So you need to make sure, you need to spend some effort thinking about, is my methodology appropriate to my research questions? Am I getting the best value in tackling my research questions with this methodology? Now, this may mean that some of you may have to use methodologies that you don't like very much. That's a problem, of course. We all face that problem. I've been publishing for years, and I'm always encountering methodologies, which sometimes I'm thinking, I've got a co-author here who wants to do something very strange, but I better figure it out. And that's what you got to think. You got to figure it out, because sometimes your thesis can be weakened with that little, it doesn't sound much, but that leap between research questions and those research questions coming out of your literature review, that needs to be really strong. So the reader, or in my case, the listener, needs to be able to understand which direction it's going in. And I noticed every single presentation that was a connection, it was probably there, meant to be there, but you didn't say it. And it wasn't written anywhere. On the written bits I got, it wasn't written. So do that. Justify and argue why this methodology or why this group of methodologies, and even think, why not something else? Because it will strengthen your overall thesis. And also it makes it easy to read, because otherwise your writing becomes, what we say in English, choppy. Here we have a literature, bonk. Now we start a methodology, bonk, and it's a bit like, well, what happened between? So it needs to flow and it needs to go in a logical direction. And I would say that's something I noticed in everything. The other thing is that you really need to get underneath concepts in a very, very meaningful way. Some of you, I asked for, what does this mean? And you weren't able to tell me, but I was able to tell you. Aha. So I knew, because I knew I'm a bit cheeky, I kind of know the answer to things before I ask them. But in other words, interrogate things. Don't just, because it's written in a paper, don't assume that it's that important. You need to interrogate it. Make sure your ideas. So, I mean, we have some very interesting ideas, and I thought, yes, but we need to go deeper into those ideas. And the other thing is, we need to show connections between ideas. So in your literature review in particular, you need to show why there's a connection between these pieces of writing. It was almost like I went there, all kind of interesting, but I want to know, why do we have that? Some of you, I was looking at a reference and I was thinking, we don't need that. We don't need it. You could do without. But most of you, I thought, you need to read more widely around the subject and show that, demonstrate that you really have a command of what has been written. To some of you, I mentioned the story of Sir Isaac Newton. And now I would draw you a picture. Do you want me to draw you a picture? Yeah. Oh, okay. Oh, I haven't got a pen. Have I got a pen? Yeah. Okay. Okay. This is a very silly picture to make a very point. Right. This is a giant. Well, it's only my 5-second version of a giant. So get the idea, it's a giant. Okay. This is a giant. That's because I'm telling you it's a giant. So Isaac Newton, the great English physicist, says about knowledge, he says, we, that's you, me, all of us, are Orenkachil, pygmies. There we are. Can you see? Just there, little one there. He said, so Isaac Newton said, we are pygmies standing on the shoulders of giants, which is why we can see so far. And that is the whole point. He's making a point. Now, remember, yesterday I talked to you about the dating of the Royal Society. The Royal Society starts the idea of a journal and literature reviews. Isaac Newton says we have to look at what has gone before, and we stand on what has gone before, and we'll see further. And that's my giant, and that's my pygmy. Not the best of drawings, but I hope it amuses you, yeah? Because it is a serious point. And I think you need to think like that. Your literature review should say, these are very important people. I'm going to consider them, but I'm the little person that's standing on all of them, and I'm going to see more further than they have seen. And this brings me to my next point, which is none of you mentioned the word contribution. You all tended to have a problem-solving dimension. And I know this is a very difficult one because it's exactly the same in any university that I've ever worked in or have visited. We tend to think that PhDs or doctorates are about problem solving. Well, yes, they are. But ultimately, they're a contribution to knowledge, which is what that little pygmy on that giant is doing. And so remember that little pygmy, because that's you and me. And so what you need to do in your literature review is to set the giant. That's the giant, and you stand on that, and you will see far. And that seeing far is your contribution. You've seen more than what these other people, your methodology, your results have enabled you to see more. And it can only be, it may be only a little something or other, but the contribution is now increasingly across some countries. Anyway, I was in Malaysia last year, same thing. They're all trying to understand what a contribution is. Funny enough, it is a difficult thing to understand. What is it that you've done that nobody else has done and makes you special? The thing is, a couple of weeks ago, I had a student who had a big headache and was trying to think what his contribution was to go in his conclusion. He said, it's so difficult. I said, the reason it's so difficult is you're thinking that you've got to be Einstein. And you're thinking, I've got to wake up one morning and suddenly, boom, you know, I've solved all the world's problems with this wonderful, wonderful equation. I said, no, 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 no. It's much more logical and smaller than that, because you can always qualify your contribution by saying the limitations of this research, and if you want to, areas for future research. In other words, that's quite clever because it makes your thesis dynamic. This thesis doesn't end here. It's got limitations, I know that. So the limitations help you to understand what your contribution is. So remember that. If you're ever talking about your thesis, maybe you should start with the contribution if you're doing a presentation. Say, I was aiming to make a contribution in this area, and then go back and say what it's about. The other thing is that don't be too hung up on methods either. Some of you clearly found some interesting methods and thought they were really interesting, but they didn't actually fit with your research. And so it was a kind of disjunction between that. That said, all the topics that I heard were very sound. They were all good topics. Not one of them, all 6 of them were really good topics. And I think they all had what we call legs. Legs, kaki. Yeah, it's like that. They'll carry on. Now, increasingly around the world, people are thinking that a doctorate is not an end product. When I was doing my PhD, it was almost like you did your PhD and that was the high point in your life. But the world changed. When I was finishing my PhD, I realized it was just the beginning, because the PhD is demonstrating your ability to conduct a piece of original research. And what I've tried to do with all of you is to indicate how you can use your PhD as a strategy for publishing in international journals. Think of it that way. For some of you, I was able to even name journals where I thought you might try. So be thinking all the time, what can I, so some of you, for example, I said, you've got maybe 3 different, actually you're all very multidisciplinary, which is great, but some of you very, very clear. And I was thinking, well, you may put your thesis all together, but then you may chop it up and go into these different subject areas and go into these different journals. And you know, some of you, it's clearly maybe multidisciplinary, but it's clearly one area. But some of you, it's actually looking towards other journals. We did have some examples of people who tried to publish in journals. And I go back to what I said yesterday. You need to actually figure out what it is that journals will accept. What are they interested in? The other thing, some of you did put acknowledgements in. A lot of you didn't. It's always polite, yeah? Even in a presentation, even if you just mention it briefly, but you acknowledgements are actually quite curiously not important, but they show you that you've got a sensitivity about the world and that people have been helpful towards you. Now, to some people, I introduced you to concept, and this concept could be applied to all of you. I introduce you to the idea that if you're doing research on an area which you have a personal connection with, then the word that you need to use is reflexivity. Reflexivity in the sense that you have a better understanding of that area because you're culturally or emotionally close or whatever, but that reflexivity means that you must doubly demonstrate your critical reasoning. You must say, I know this, I know Jogja, okay? I know wherever, Riau, it doesn't matter, I know it. But you need to say, I'm being reflexive. I'm almost being self-critical about what I know to show that you are aware that you are seeing from the inside. So I would, now finally, I would say, do move into online methodologies of any kind. A lot of methodologies now, a lot of you mentioned COVID. Well, I'll tell you a story about COVID. It happened when we were sending out in my university loads of students to write their dissertations, and all had been planning to do interviews, to do participant observation, focus groups, and suddenly they couldn't do it. There was a panic. And I very bravely or stupidly, as it happened, said, I have got a methodology where you can do what you want to do, but you can do it online without meeting people. And I ended up training large numbers of students very, very quickly in various forms of netnography, which is very handy because it can go in any direction, but basically analyzing online material, how you analyze it. You can analyze it with software, but I even have, if you're interested, I even have a very basic pencil and paper version of how you do online research. So I would be aware that this is a growth area, and who knows, we might get another pandemic. You know, this can happen. And also, you need to be, perhaps some of you, it's not a bad idea to have more than one methodology. It doesn't weaken your paper, especially if you can justify it. Again, it's a question of I'm doing this, but to find out this aspect, I'll use another methodology and try and bring the two together. It's called triangulation. Triangulation. So you're comparing different methodologies and seeing what else you can find. So finally, all the points I've got are detailed. And of course, I did give detailed feedback to each of you one by one. And I hope you found that useful. But those were the main points. What I did wonder was, whether you have some kind of, do you have some kind of PhD handbook at Gajah Mada? Guidelines, but do you have something a bit deeper? Because we're developing at Goldsmiths, we're developing actually much more, taking people through everything. So we used to have guidelines, but we're now talking about even explaining all the different variants of a PhD, because some of you are doing different kinds of PhDs. Yeah, and I thought that was interesting. The interesting thing is in our emerging handbooks, we're discussing the different kinds of PhDs, the strengths and the weaknesses. And if you want some help with writing something like that, I can certainly do that. And also with how to bridge that gap between research question and methodology. That does need, I think, we're working on that at my university, trying to make sure that people understand that this is quite a critical area. So all in all, I very much enjoyed hearing the presentations. It was incredibly interesting. It's clear to me, well, I've always known this, UGM is a powerhouse of knowledge creation. And I was impressed by all of you. This is quite a large group, but you all did very nice presentations. And some of it was in Indonesian, some of it was English, some of it was gado-gado, but it didn't matter. We managed. Actually, there was not one bit I didn't understand. So that was pretty okay. It's just actually replying in Indonesian at short notice is actually rather difficult because I'm not working in an Indonesian university, but I can actually understand. That's not a problem. So, thank you very much for having me here. I really enjoyed it. I always enjoy Jogja. And if you're interested, what am I doing on Jalan Malioboro every day? Well, I think Diana knows the answer to that. Of course, it's an interesting street. I'm pretending I'm shopping. I'm doing ethnography on Malioboro. I go down there, I walk up and down, look into shops. I'm looking at what's going on because it is a very, very interesting street. I think it's the most interesting street in Indonesia, to be frank. It's incredible. So thank you all and lovely to meet you.
Thank you so much for the summary, Prof. Michael. It's very clear and very useful for all of us. Thank you. Kemudian acara selanjutnya kita akan bersama-sama mendengarkan testimoni dari dua peserta yang akan memberikan testimoninya. Yang pertama, kita persilahkan kepada Bapak Uut untuk berkenan memberikan testimoni acara 2 hari ini. Silakan, Bapak.
Bahasa Indonesia jelas.
Oke, terima kasih. Wah, ini saya ditembak terus ini. Terima kasih teman-teman semuanya sejawat. Jadi yang sangat menarik pada perjumpaan workshop kali ini saya kira justru pertama tentu diwarnai oleh banyaknya peserta yang berlatar belakang perempuan. Ini saya kira ini luar biasa ini.
Yes, yeah.
Ya, oke. Dan saya pikir ada beberapa di antara yang terlibat di sini adalah berlatar belakang juga praktisi. Saya pikir ini sangat menarik. Dan saya mungkin ada di dua dunia itu. Samping saya bekerja sebagai pengajar, dosen, tapi juga saya aktif di organisasi Ikatan Arsitek Indonesia. Dan saya pikir kegiatan semacam ini atau bahkan program PhD itu juga di dalam alur pendidikan arsitek itu dibuka ruang sebetulnya untuk para praktisi. Jadi kalau praktisi itu di level awal itu biasanya dengan program profesi arsitek begitu, maka spesialis 1 dan spesialis 2 itu menurut saya levelnya juga pada master dan doktor degree. Gitu. Saya kira ini juga tepat menurut saya karena wawasan pembiasaan berpikir ontologis gitu ya, jadi punya dasar filosofi yang kuat dan sebagainya, itu akan menguatkan karya-karya arsitektur masa depan saya kira. Dan apa yang sekarang terjadi, praktek yang banyak dilakukan di dunia praktek itu lebih banyak formulanya dengan proses-proses tadi diskusi dengan Profesor Hitchcock, apakah itu trial and error, apakah itu studi presiden, ataukah justru itu merupakan pembelajaran dari learning by doing begitu. Saya kira arsitek punya cara sendiri untuk menghasilkan karya itu dan salah satu jalannya antara lain menguatkan dari sisi kemampuan berpikir. S3 saya kira sebuah pilihan. Terima kasih sekali lagi buat S3 UGM. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih Pak Uut. Selanjutnya kepada Pak Elvis, dimohon berkenan untuk memberikan testimoni. Pak Elvis, silakan.
Cek. Baik, terima kasih Bu. Selamat siang Prof. Wiendu, Prof. Yoyo, dan Prof. Mikael. Selamat siang teman-teman semua. Terima kasih Prof. Mikael sudah datang ke sini. Saya sudah beberapa kali baca buku dari Prof. Mikael, tetapi baru kali ini bertemu. Sebenarnya tahun lalu sudah sempat mengagendakan untuk bertemu dengan Prof. Mikael dalam kegiatan ini, tapi baru terlaksana hari ini dan kemarin dan hari ini, dan difasilitasi oleh sebuah kegiatan yang sudah lama dibangun di S3 Arsitektur UGM, yaitu kegiatan kemisan. Nah, saya pertama-tama mengucapkan terima kasih kepada panitia yang sudah mengagendakan kegiatan ini begitu baik. Saya juga hadir kemarin namun tidak full, hari ini full. Banyak sekali hal yang bisa saya dapatkan dan ini bentuk yang sangat lengkap karena tahun kemarin sudah ada dari Prof. Ismail dari Malaysia, kemudian ada juga dari Prof. Farida juga dari Malaysia. Hari ini ada Prof. Mikael dan sebuah kebetulan juga kita di kelas ini bukan saja mahasiswa dari Indonesia, tetapi ada juga dari yang berasal dari Timor Leste. Maka kegiatan ini sebenarnya adalah kegiatan internasional ya, karena kita pembicaranya dari beliau dosen di Makau, juga di Inggris, pulau kecil ya. Kemudian dari Timor Leste juga, dan kita di sini berkumpul di satu kelas. Banyak sekali hal yang saya dapatkan hari ini, terutama masukan-masukan dan saran dari Prof. Mikael yang sangat detail. Meskipun beliau tulisannya banyak di tourism, tapi beliau juga memberikan masukan-masukan yang sangat berarti untuk kita yang basicnya adalah arsitektur. Besar harapan saya dalam tahun ini atau tahun depan Prof. Mikael berkenan untuk kembali ke sini karena belum banyak makanan yang sepertinya Prof. Ismail perlu coba lagi. Pagi tadi beliau bercerita kepada saya dan Pak Har, beliau mencoba bubur tapi katanya terlalu pedas. Jadi mungkin perlu besok atau lusa perlu coba yang versi yang lebih manis, Prof. Baik, selamat datang. Kami sangat senang bila Prof. Mikael bisa kembali lagi ke sini di waktu-waktu dan kesempatan selanjutnya. Terima kasih.
Baik, terima kasih kepada dua partisipan yang sudah berkenan memberikan testimoninya. Menginjak acara selanjutnya adalah penyerahan cenderamata kepada Prof. Michael. Untuk itu kepada Prof. Wiendu dan Prof. Yoyo dimohon berkenan untuk memberikan cenderamata kepada Prof. Michael. Dipersilahkan. Tunggu sebentar fotonya, Prof. Mohon kepada Prof. Yoyo berkenan untuk memberikan kepada Prof. Michael. Ya, diucapkan terima kasih kepada Prof. Yoyo dan Prof. Wiendu. Selanjutnya kepada para peserta, kita akan diberikan sertifikat yang secara langsung oleh Prof. Wiendu. Kepada Prof. Wiendu dimohon berkenan untuk bisa memberikan sertifikat kepada peserta dan didampingi oleh Prof. Yoyo. Yang pertama adalah Bapak Insinyur Ahmad Saifuddin Mutaki MT. Monggo. Yang kedua adalah Bapak Rizal Dikhair. Oh, enggak ada, kita lewati. Kemudian yang ketiga adalah Bapak Nino Ardiansyah. Enggak ada. Yang keempat adalah, yang ketiga adalah Lapande Jurumai. Selanjutnya adalah Marinda Nur Fajrina Noviana Putri. Selanjutnya Cynthia Permata Dewi. Selanjutnya Widi Cahya Yudanta. Oh, enggak ada. Selanjutnya Dwi Oktavalian Saputri. Selanjutnya Lestari. Selanjutnya Inayatul Ilah Nasruddin. Selanjutnya Wiwi Dwi Susanti. Ada ini. Selanjutnya Andi Dwi Eva Lestari. Diaturkan terima kasih kepada Prof. Wiendu. Selanjutnya dimohon kepada Prof. Yoyo untuk berkenan memberikan sertifikat kepada peserta, Prof. Selanjutnya kepada Muhammad Arif Kurniawan. Oh, enggak ada. Selanjutnya Hafsah Intifadoh Rabania. Selanjutnya Mirza Ramandika. Selanjutnya Mewan Nindra. Selanjutnya Padmana Gredi Prabasmara. Selanjutnya Aldrin Febriansah. Selanjutnya Cynthia Ririn Endianti. Selanjutnya Sidi Pramudito. Selanjutnya Murwanto Panghargio. Selanjutnya Firda Ayu Atika.
Selanjutnya Bu Absari Wahyuningsih. Selanjutnya Rian Aditya Pratiwi.
Selanjutnya Yunita Kusuma. Selanjutnya Masyana Arifah Alifah Riza. Ada. Selanjutnya Kade Indira Diah Kardina. Selanjutnya Dita Ayu Rani Natalia. Selanjutnya Kurnia Widyastuti. Selanjutnya Istiana Adianti. Selanjutnya Mutiawati Mandaka. Selanjutnya RR Diana Ayuda. Selanjutnya Sri Sunarti. Selanjutnya Tutun Seliari. Selanjutnya Elvis Salau. Selanjutnya Gun Faisal. Selanjutnya Hasrul. Nggak ada Hasrul. Selanjutnya Rosalia Rahmari Hadiani. Selanjutnya Yunanto Nugroho. Yunanto Nugroho. Nggak ada. Selanjutnya Andrea Bayu Ardiawan. Selanjutnya Julio dos Santos. Selanjutnya Susi Maria Peregrina Lim Godino. Selanjutnya Hetty Anggraini. Selanjutnya Berkat Cipta Ziga. Hetty dulu. Yang siapa? Selanjutnya Gary Raya Prima. Baca. Selanjutnya Radinal. Selanjutnya Fadila Firdausa. Fadila. Ya. Selanjutnya Dinda Julia Putri. Ada? Tidak ada. Baik, terima kasih kepada Prof. Yoyo. Kami aturkan. Oh, sebentar, mohon maaf Prof. Masih ada satu lagi ternyata. Megananda Arum Cinda Putri. Ada? Megananda? Enggak ada Prof. Terima kasih. Baik, akhirnya sampai pula kita pada penghujung acara, pada rangkaian acara PhD Kandidat Workshop Strategies for Publishing in International Journal. Kami segenap panitia menghaturkan terima kasih banyak atas berkenannya Bapak Ibu semua berpartisipasi aktif pada acara hari ini, dan sekali lagi terima kasih kepada Prof. Michael Hitchcock atas semua insight dan ilmu yang telah diberikan, dan juga kepada Prof. Yoyo yang telah memfasilitasi acara ini sehingga berlangsung. Saya selaku MC mengucapkan mohon maaf dan diatur ya, dan diaturkan juga terima kasih kepada Prof. Wiendu. Akhir kata izinkan sedikit pantun untuk menutup ya. Mohon cakepnya. Siang hari makan kuaci, makan bareng sama Bu Asih. Cukup sekian acara hari ini, saya ucapkan banyak terima kasih. Sampai bertemu lagi di acara lainnya. Terima kasih. Baik, Bapak Ibu mohon berkenan foto bersama lagi ya.
Lumayan 4 semester jadi tanggalan.
Terima kasih ya. Terima kasih, Prof. Terima kasih semuanya.
Ya Mas ya.
Oh lah, ketua kami itu harus dipajang di mana-mana.